if you don't set your sights at getting one Bitcoin, then you're like, you have to get to one. Like right now, that's the goal. You have to get to one Bitcoin, I think. And you should really work. I don't know what you have to do to get to one Bitcoin, but you should figure out whatever it takes to get to one Bitcoin. Do whatever it takes. Sell a kidney. I am not kidding. You have an extra one. Sell one of your kidneys. You might be able to get a Bitcoin for it. Do something, but get a Bitcoin, Like, this is like a major opportunity, like, especially young people. They don't realize how lucky they are right now. I just love Bitcoin. I think it's like the best thing. I've never been as emphatically in love with an asset as I have with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is one of those special things. It's like, it's one of these things where once you discover it and you see how great it is, you really think that it could really change the world, and it could make you immensely wealthy as a byproduct. That would kind of shock me if we were below 200,000. Something's wrong with my thesis, because I do think we're going to double from here in the next year.
Fred Krueger delves right into Bitcoin's revolutionary potential, especially how it interacts with established financial systems. He draws attention to the ways that changes in liquidity models and institutional participation could impact the dynamics of Bitcoin's price and pave the way for previously unheard-of expansion. According to Fred, a significant change in market sentiment brought about by the adoption of Bitcoin by conventional financial institutions may cause its price to surge to previously unthinkable heights. He highlights the fine line that separates Bitcoin's function as a systemic risk hedge from its intrinsic volatility. Fred predicts that 2024 will be a dramatic year with greater adoption, more transparent regulations, and the slow dismantling of conventional financial paradigms. Please take a time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and enable post notifications if you like this kind of content so that you can be updated. Remember to watch our other videos about digital assets and cryptocurrencies, and leave a comment below with your thoughts. Thank you, and enjoy the video.
I mean, honestly, if they pass that bill, right, where they say we're going to buy 1 million Bitcoin, I think Bitcoin price doubles overnight. I mean, it's kind of like, one of the guys on one of my spaces, this guy, Zach Resnick, he's actually working on part of the actual legislation. He's a lawyer, and he goes, Fred, this thing goes through. He goes, it's like a nuclear bomb. It's sort of like, I go, so does it break the power law? He goes, yeah, it goes to 500,000 immediately, Fred. Like, that's it. Like, we're done. It's like, it breaks all models. There's a lot of things like that could happen. Another one is like no capital gains on Bitcoin. Like there's definitely I'm not saying it's a non-zero possibility to say there will not be any capital gains on Bitcoin. You have the U.S. does a strategic reserve. Well, the Middle East will quadruple their strategic reserve, and Russia will do theirs. And like, these things are all, it's all an interconnected thing. And, it promises to be, on the other hand, if we don't get a strategic reserve, there's probably some of that's, priced into the market. And some people will view it in the most negative possible way. And they'll be like, see, I told you, we didn't get a strategic reserve. You got to sell that thing. And it's, the Joe Carlosalis of the world who claim that they're Bitcoiners, but who insist on betting people like me that the price is going to go down, So, I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot of volatility. I think we're going to have a good year, very good year with a lot of volatility. And I think at the end of the next year, it's going to be more clear that you should have been long a lot of Bitcoin in 2024. So I just love Bitcoin. I think it's like the best thing. I've never been as emphatically in love with an asset as I have with Bitcoin. I think I don't think usually assets I want to talk about on Twitter or on YouTube. But Bitcoin is one of those special things. It's like, it's one of these things where once you discover it and you see how great it is, you really think that it could really change the world, and it could make you immensely wealthy as a byproduct. Look, the average house in Australia, for your information, is now selling for 10 Bitcoin. Okay.
Sure.
Most people, they're sitting there going, 10 Bitcoin, I can buy a house for that. But 1 Bitcoin to hold too much. Makes no sense. Okay. Until we're up at $1 million per Bitcoin, they should have the idea of owning 1 Bitcoin. That's what they should do. Right. You need to if you don't set your sights at getting 1 Bitcoin, then you have to get to one. Like right now, that's the goal. You have to get to 1 Bitcoin, I think, and you should really work. I don't know what you have to do to get to 1 Bitcoin, but you should figure out whatever it takes to get to 1 Bitcoin. Do whatever it takes. Sell a kidney, okay? You have an extra one. Sell one of your kidneys. You might be able to get a Bitcoin for it. I'm not sure what the market is, but, I don't know. But, do something, but get a Bitcoin, this is like a major opportunity, especially young people. They don't realize how lucky they are right now. I didn't have Bitcoin when I was your age. It's great to have this opportunity to get big. Just make it a priority. The problem is people don't take it seriously. They're just spending all their time watching Netflix. Stop watching Netflix. Put the Netflix down. Get a second job. Stop watching real estate porn on, Zillow and looking at, this kind of crap and looking at some kind of, crappy house in Australia that you want to buy. No, just buy some Bitcoin and chill. Rent a studio somewhere, cheapest thing you can find, and sleep on a mattress. That's it. That's the right play, right? Stop with the creature comforts and the social stuff. Don't need it. You will thank me later. And your 1 Bitcoin might be worth $1 million in 10 years. Great. It's great. That's how you become a millionaire. It's still within reach. It's within reach of most of the people. I mean, maybe not if you're in, I don't know, some of your readers might be in Uganda or I don't know, someplace like that, right? Maybe not. Maybe 1 Bitcoin is a little bit much for them, right? But anybody who's listening to you in Australia or America, people spend a Bitcoin on a car, what are you talking about? I don't know. It's achievable. You just have to really prioritize it. I think you all can get to 1 Bitcoin. You have no excuse. It's like the Alex Baldwin said in Glenn Ross, your excuses are your own, pal.
Fred contrasts Bitcoin with traditional currencies and real estate to show its special benefits as a store of value. Bitcoin is distinguished from tangible assets by its unparalleled portability, accessibility, and scalability. Because of its limited quantity and rising demand worldwide, Fred believes that Bitcoin is the ultimate digital gold. As more individuals, organizations, and even governments become aware of its disruptive potential, he thinks its worth will continue to increase. To remain up to date on the most recent developments in Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and the digital economy, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and enable post notifications. Now let's get back and hear what Fred has to say.
Look, I think that my back of the envelope calculation, it's almost has nothing to do with the power law. It's just the multiplier. Look, I think MicroStrategy did about $30 billion this year, right? Total in inflows. Maybe almost 30, somewhere between 20 and 30, right?
Is that the same as the ETFs? Yeah, sorry.
Well, the ETFs did a little bit more, maybe total, but they're almost comparable, right? So, people how much? So we've had $60 billion, let's just call it, right? That went from institutional money or institutional retail, but TradFi, there's been a $60 billion movement into or let's say a $50 billion movement into Bitcoin, right? What did that do to Bitcoin? Well, it moved it up from, let's call it 40,000 to 100,000. Right? Okay. Let's just say even it moved it from 50,000, doubled it, right? Okay. So it created $1 trillion of market cap with $50 billion in there. That's a 20x multiple, right? So let's just use 20x. I think that's probably a pretty decent multiple on how much money's coming into the combo of ETFs and MicroStrategy, right? Well, what do I think MicroStrategy is going to do next year? I think they could probably do 75 billion, What do I think the ETFs? I think the ETFs will do more now, right? I think they'll probably do 150 billion. They're sort of getting going, I feel like the BlackRocks of the world, they're just starting, the advisors, all that stuff. So I think if you look at this and you say, okay, Brad, what do you think the total number is between, I'd say 250 billion, maybe 200 billion, between those two. So what does that do to the market? Well, I think it gets you to around 400, thousand per Bitcoin, Now, of course, that rosy scenario may not play out, but I think that that seems reasonable to me. And that doesn't even involve Bitcoin National Reserve or, any of that stuff, right? It's just TradFi and MicroStrategies doing their thing,
Damn, okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
No, I don't know. I think there's a wide variety of things, but I'd be kind of shocked if we're below 200,000 next year. at the end of next year. That would kind of shock me if we were below 200,000. Something's wrong with my thesis, because I do think we're going to double from here in the next year. I mean, look, we did it better than that this year. We did more than double, right? I think we'll triple or quadruple, or maybe even more. It's possible. I do think that right now, it's a supply and demand thing, right? So where's the supply coming from? The supply is coming from OGs selling, mainly. It's not miners don't matter anymore, right? So you have the supply is OGs selling. Well, I think a lot of the OGs got out right around 100K. I think that was a lot of them kind of there. I think the next tranche of stuff, I think you're going to have people peel away parts, but I don't think they're going to get out entirely. Just talking to people I know and, my experience, I don't see people saying I'm out. At 200K, I'm out. Like, I don't meet people like that. I don't know, maybe you do, but I don't, you know what I mean? I don't see people like that. I see people saying at 200K, I might take off 10% or 20%, you know what I mean? And I might do that myself, by the way. Only reason to do that for me is I kind of believe in this Kelly criterion a little bit. I think that as a discipline, it's good to say, I'm going to have some maximum threshold, beyond which I don't want to be in Bitcoin.
Fred Krueger wraps up his research with a thorough examination of the dynamics of the Bitcoin market and a convincing forecast for the price trend of the cryptocurrency over the next 12 months. Using a straightforward but powerful calculation, he first breaks down how institutional inflows affect Bitcoin's market capitalization and shows how each dollar entering the market has a substantial multiplier effect. As an illustration of Bitcoin's distinct liquidity and market dynamics, he says that $50 billion in institutional inflows this year contributed to the cryptocurrency's market valuation increasing by $1 trillion, exhibiting a 20 times multiple. Building on this, Fred predicts even greater inflows from ETFs and firms such as MicroStrategy in 2024. Together, he projects that these vehicles might generate $200 to $250 billion, which, at the same 20 times multiple, might push the price of Bitcoin to an incredible $400,000. He is adamant that Bitcoin will at least double to $200,000, even with a more cautious stance, underscoring the extraordinary demand from both institutional and retail participants. Fred also discusses the supply-side dynamics of Bitcoin, pointing out that long-term holders, or OGs, are now the main source of selling pressure rather than miners, whose power over the market has waned over time. In order to encourage Bitcoin's upward momentum, he forecasts that while some OGs may take partial profits as prices rise, the majority are unlikely to leave the market completely. Fred concludes by discussing the value of disciplined investing and citing the Kelly criterion as a strategy to control risk and prevent overexposure, even in a market that is positive. He openly discusses his own strategy for making money at significant turning points while being true to the long-term goal of Bitcoin as a game-changing commodity. And as always, happy investing.